What day is it today?
Flamingo
It's the last Flamingo Friday of the semester
Whoa.
for you people. So you just have to skip class 6 periods so you can come next Friday.
Yeah, obviously. I'm gonna.
Drum roll, please. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yeah! Close enough. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Look at the rat. The light just reflects off the beauty of the rat. It's like an aura. It's like a halo. Just notice that rug really ties the room together, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So dumb.
Can you just imagine this room without the rug? Oh,
I couldn't.
sterile, dull, tile. It's just kind of a, like almost like industrial gas. Oh, you have the rug. What do you mean?
It would be so dystopian. So.
With the rug, now with the rug, we have a stale, dull tile, ugly desk, and a rug. All right, here we go. Boxing. I'm not ready. I lied. I am now ready. Begin.
All right. So my presentation is on boxing. Hooray. All right. So the history, this is all kind of speculation. We're not really sure where boxing originated, but we think it originated somewhere in East Africa about 8,000 years ago. It became really popular in Egypt, and then it spread into Greece, and then eventually into the Roman Empire, where it kind of spread across Europe. And then it's thought that ancient India also had forms of boxing, but that was to the death. And it came back in Britain in the 16th century, where it was called prize fighting, and it was really brutal, a lot of times bare knuckle fist fights, and it got outlawed pretty quickly, and there were lots of injuries. Rules, there were a lot of different kinds of rules developed. Some were, but in an attempt to make boxing more appealing to people who didn't want to get killed in the ring.
Huh.
But the Marquess,
Marquis.
I looked it up. It's the British pronunciation. It's Marquess.
Is it really?
I looked it up and that's what it said. Marquis, the French one spelled differently. I thought it was Marquis too.
Those limeys.
Yeah. The Marquis of Queensberry rules are what they kind of settled on, and those are really close to the ones we use today with some tweaks. And those include fighters have to use gloves so that they don't hurt themselves and the opponents more. There's 3-minute rounds and 1-minute rests. Fighters have 10 seconds to get back up once they're knocked down, and if they don't get back up in those 10 seconds, they're knocked out. They can't wrestle, and then a referee can step in and stop the match at any time. And then this kind of turned this rowdy sport that was often legalized into more of what we see today. One of the early boxers was John L. Sullivan, or the Boston Strong Boy. He was born in 1958, and he had 450 total fights. He won the world championship title in 1887. And to defend that title, he fought Charlie Mitchell, and that fight lasted 39 rounds, and then he won. His last big fight was against Jake Kilrain, which was 75 rounds. And in the end, they both had to say, we're done fighting, we can't fight anymore. That fight was in a state that it was legal to box, and so the governor issued a $10,000 reward for either of them got arrested. And then he died at 59 from boxing and drinking all of his life, which takes a heavy toll on the human body. So there's him kind of later in his life posing, and there's from one of his fights. All right, cheating. So lacing is the only one up there that's not really self-explanatory, but it's when you rub the laces of your boxing gloves against the opponent's face to try to cut them, which is obviously not allowed and would put the other player out of the fight. Headbutting is pretty self-explanatory. You can see it right there. And then doping fighters would use performance-enhancing drugs to make them stronger, faster, in a lot of cases lighter, so that they could go down weight classes but retain muscle, and it would be easier for them to fight. And then fixed fights, obviously bribery, blackmail, and threats. And that was to the fighters and to the referees, so that the referees wouldn't call cheap shots. And a lot of these fights weren't just to fix for money, they were to extend the fight so that people would get more money and then be more likely to come back.
Do you remember 8 Men Out when Ava Tell said, I kept the fight going for 4 rounds? Or Bill, they said I kept it going so they could get
Yeah.
that's it.
There's actually a lot of parallels between those things. All right, the mob. So the mob was really heavily tied into boxing, especially in like the 30s. Frankie Carbo and Blinky Palermo were two infamous boxers or infamous boxing influencers, and they would use those same cheating techniques. They would influence fights so that they could rig them to win. The fighters were paid to win or lose, so like you have to win this fight, or in more likely case, you have to lose this fight. Intimidated, and then like we saw in 8 Men Out, they would say like, we'll kill you or kill your family. Referees would also be bribed or threatened so that one fighter could do whatever they want. The referee wouldn't say anything. And not only would they rig the singular fights, but they would influence the careers of boxers so that they could continue making money. One of those boxers was Primo Carnera, the ambling ant. This guy was huge. He was born in 1906. He was 6'6" tall, and he weighed 260 pounds. He was called the ambling ant for obvious reasons. He had an impressive career, but there was a lot of speculation that it was influenced by the mob and that they helped him rise to prominence. One of his main fights, Elzar Rue, it was suspected to be rigged. It was a fight in Madison Square Garden where Elzar was just holding back his punches and extended the fight. And then there's some speculation that the mob at one point stopped influencing his career, and he went down brutally in a fight after like 45 seconds. All right, current day. Boxing is a very popular attraction today. The most watched recent event was the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight with 38 million viewers.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So some people suspected that one was rigged to be extended because people would get more money. And it's much more publicized with media, but it's also way less brutal. A lot of like early fights were, to the death, or till one person was knocked out and they couldn't get up. And now it's just there's rules and fouls and referees that are less rigged. And the total sports betting market is worth about $15 billion annually. And every time I looked up gambling and boxing in the same sentence, it would bring up current bets, like place your bets here. Here's a website to place your bets. Up to 94% of those bets are digital. All right, and I'm going to do a demonstration, so I need a volunteer.
Excited.
So I'm going to show some of the ways that you
okay.
can cheat.
Okay.
So
Well, why did it go?
yeah, you get these gloves.
I'm gonna get it. Thank you.
These gloves do belong to you.
Keep your left up.
Yeah.
Rule 1.
Oh,
Please don't actually hit me.
I'm on the stage.
Okay. So
Yeah, oh my ends.
that's the thing. All right. So laces.
Yeah.
So these ones don't have laces, but a lot of them have laces. This would actually work. It's when you rub that part against the other fighter's face, Yep.
There.
like that, instead of actually punching me, and now just, it's sliced up fighters' faces. And then doping.
When we're filming this.
He's gonna give Rowan.
So that would make a fighter more aggressive, stronger, lighter, have more ability. All right. Threats were a big one. They would just, they would threaten. So, is this your family?
Yeah.
This is your family?
Whoa.
I'm going to lose this fight. And then the last one, of course, is bribery.
Oh.
And a lot of times,
Easy to bribe.
we wouldn't actually.
You can't actually carry the money out on the ring. They figured something out.
And most of these, the threats and bribery were, you got lose this fight or they bribe a referee. It's hard to pay somebody to win, because that's just against their natural ability.
And they're getting paid to win anyway.
Yeah, and then they would place bets on the other side.
Did you learn about any really famous Rig matches, rig.
The one Elzar Rue they think
Yeah.
was rigged. It was Madison Square Garden, and they said Rue was like not really even fighting; he was just backing off. And then again, some people think that Mike Tyson and Jake Paul was extended beyond where it should have been.
That's on-
Yeah, that would, and so a lot. It's publicized and less brutal, so it's a lot more showmanship.
Any other questions? All right, good job. We want to know who's easily bribed in here. This is great.
Nice. Oh, yeah.
The whole time I was sitting there, my chair was. Okay. So, who's going?
Uh,
Okay, I have horse betting ready to go, but we got poker ready to go now too. Give me 1 sec.
there's so much.
Go.
Don't
Don't go.
go.
Keep forgetting to move the mouse. It was there. Ooh.
Oh, my thing. So yeah, I'm doing poker. There's a lot to talk about. Poker is quite expensive. So ready to learn how to cheat a sucker? First let's look at the history of poker and how it's played today. History. Okay, so in the 1500s and 1600s, we see the introduction of brag. Brag was made in England. It was different because you could already wager on different games, but in brag, you couldn't see anyone else's cards, so there was no visible outcome to see what was going on. So you bet basically on how much you could make other people believe. Hands were hidden, bets were public. Confidence was the name of the game. It's a lot that we see mostly with poker now of like having a poker face or being like, am I betting higher and higher in order to see how much you can get other people to believe. Bragg introduced hand hierarchies. So the highest card you could have was 3 of a kind. You could have flushes, running flushes, or just a run, pairs, and high card. There was no full house or anything like that. But Bragg was kind of brutal in the way it was played because if you had more money, you could get people to fold a lot faster. And since it was played in, England at this time period, rich people were really good at this game purely for the fact they could intimidate like farming folk into being like, I have more money than you, so I'm gonna win the game. After this, we have poke, which has more structured betting. Unlike brag, there was a lot less verbal deception and bravado. It placed more emphasis on just betting behavior. So the betting was you had definite rounds of when you would bet. In brag, you kind of just like bet whenever until people folded. But they followed on like agreed upon structures. And it's also where the term bluffer came in. So it just means to deceive. It was more so being able to bet with thinking in mind rather than just being like, I have more money. It was eventually brought to Louisiana, where it got its main hold in America. It then encountered Spanish card games like Primero, and then this is how we get early American poker. So it's split the cultural blend between all these mix of games is where we got 5-card hands, a 52-card deck, and new betting rounds and draw mechanics. So where there's that, and then present modern poker is how we played it. But we're gonna go a little bit more to early American poker because that's the most important part. So early American poker started out as a 21 card hand or sometimes 20 card. It's the earliest documented form of poker. But basically there's 4 people, you each get 5 cards, and there's 1 to 2 rounds of betting. So card distribution, there was usually 1 to 2 cards left or unused as community cards or burn cards, depending on where you were playing it. You'd basically get your cards, you'd bet, and then people would go around either fold or bet again. And then the limited deck made the games really fast and volatile, which were ideal for like pubs and drinking establishments usually. And also there was only 2 hands that you could have, which was a pair and 3 of a kind, which is similar to Bragg, and those being the top cards. But it transitioned into a 52 card deck later on. The reason for the transition was the growing popularity. So more people wanted to play than just 4. Larger decks reduced the frequency of ties. Players decide more variety and hierarchy and hand strength because having only 2 options to win is very fun. The expansion of hand rankings turned into straights, flushes, full house, 4 of a kind, stale with pairs, and 3 of a kind. And then that allowed for multi-street betting, more nuanced decision making, increased importance in probability and strategy. And this was just more useful because cards are portable. You can play them everywhere. Poker, you can have tons of people in the game. It's formal and you can negotiate rules at the table. It was good for social interactions because in saloons it blended alcohol, entertainment, and just winning money. Mining camps, it gave something to do. On trains and riverboats, it provided diversions and profit during travel. It also gave people like different reputations. So you could get a reputation for just being a really good gambler, or you could get a reputation for being a cheat and a liar, or just like a scoundrel. It spread more the American. It spread westward due to Mississippi riverboats, the gold rush, at military forts, and railroad expansion. It was really important in the West because it gave people chances to gain more money out in places where there weren't very many job opportunities, and it just had people communicate. So wealth could change hands, and it allowed for rapid shifts in fortune. But poker really measured composure, self-control, intelligence, and deception. And sometimes violence followed because people don't like losing. So poker became kind of this blurred thing between skill, luck, and cheating. So these accusations of cheating just because you cheated better or just could count cards quickly led to people getting killed or ran out of town, and lots of disputes. But it also led to tons of different variants in poker. There are going to be 5 that I talk about. So first, there is 3-card poker. It's the closest descendant to Bragg that we have. It's fast, aggressive, and very bluff heavy. It's not in many casinos today because most people prefer the other forms of poker. There's 5-card. 5-card poker is usually what people play when they play poker. Lots of different hand structures. You have skill and you have luck, but as you see later on, there isn't much luck. It's more just being able to count cards. Draw poker, where players exchange cards. It's so that introduced delayed information, and people, you don't fully know what everyone else has. You know what it gave people, and you know what you got, but you don't know what everyone else can have. Stud poker, it has a mix of face up and face down cards. Reduced just pure bluffing. Increased observation and memory, and 7-card stud dominated the United States for most of the 20th century. It's not as popular anymore. And then Texas Hold'em, or community card poker, it emerged in Texas, obviously, and eventually spread to Las Vegas in the 60s. The shared cards, once again, reduce variance. It encourages positional play and long-term strategy rather than just bluffing. And I don't really know why, but it's the most television-friendly version of poker. So people saw it and were like, oh, this seems kind of fun. And so poker became more mainstream with that. But modern poker is where I will. So, the core rules of modern poker are the standard 52 card deck. So you have 4 suits, 13 cards in each one. The fixed deck allows for math to come in, so you can count cards, you can guess probabilities and all that. Hand rankings, modern poker variants rely heavily on the clear rankings. It makes it a lot easier to tell who wins. So from lowest to highest, there's high card, pair, 2 pair, 3 of a kind, straight, flush, full house, 4 of a kind, straight flush, and royal flush. So as compared to the first like 4 options that were in brag and 2 in poke, people were like, oh, so this does have more than just there's 3 cards that match. So just having the hierarchy made it so people didn't really didn't have to like tie ever. There's very rarely ties in poker now. And bluffing became more focused on you know what you have and you have a wide spread of cards rather than you have 2 cards and you're like, oh, how about that? And you have to focus on the strategy rather than just pure confidence. There's also forced bets. So to ensure that there's no passive play, they use forced bets and antes and blinds. So antes are small contributions from all players. Blinds are required bets from players in specific positions. So forced bets, there's there to create the initial pot. So it rewards people for it rewards like aggression in like starting off like betting super high and positional awareness. It also ensures that every hand has a risk. And then betting rounds. Poker has very structured rounds. So during each round, players may check, bet, call, raise, or fold. So when you bet, obviously you're putting in more chips. When you call, you're not doing any more. If you raise them, you match them and then raise. And then if you fold, you're out of the game and you don't get anything. So every round ends when, well, every hand ends in one of 2 ways. If there's a showdown where remaining players reveal their cards, or fold where all but one player abandoned the hand. So they either end with everyone being like, okay, we're all just gonna check and call and leave it there, or it's gonna end up everyone else folds and this one guy wins. But obviously, poker, there's a lot of cheaters in poker, and a little did you know, in gambling people cheat. Really sad. But there's 4 main types of cheating, I guess. There's marked cards. So basically, if people have like dots on the cards, or they're bent, or they're torn, in casinos they usually have like trapped decks, which either they'll be marked so one player has an advantage, which goes on to collusion, or they have just a clean deck where there is no marked card, so that way it's more fair. 2 illicit dealings. So just the manipulation and the distribution of cards in favor of oneself or an accomplice. So there's second dealing, which is dealing the second card in the deck rather than the top card, or there's bottom dealing, which is dealing the bottom card of the deck rather than the top one. Or there's false shuffles and cuts. So when you shuffle the cards, you're not actually shuffling them, or you shuffle them in a way where it ends up better for another player. So it appears randomized, but it's not actually. Collusion, where 2 or more players secretly share information to gain an unfair advantage against another. Common forms are soft playing each other, so you're betting low for the other person and just making it so they'll have a better chance at winning to oppose like this other person. Or there's signaling with like hand gestures or betting patterns. And there's chip dumping to transfer money. So you bet everything when you know you're going to lose and the other person is going to win because you've set it up. So that way they have more money and they can bet further. Or there's external assistance, which probably makes sense. So more like hidden signaling devices. So like headphones or earbuds, or just like knocking on a table. Mirrors or reflective surfaces, so you can like see other people's hands from behind their backs. Or electronic communication, so like a phone. But yeah. And in casino games, I did a little bit of just different games. Poker, lots of skill, lots of psyching people out. And house edge, there's low to none. Poker is more you're getting cheated by the other players, not usually the house, but sometimes they're working with the house. Roulette, the house is a very high edge because they can rig the wheels. And slots, you're rarely gonna win, because they control the machines. But that's those. And then I have some people to talk about. I know you guys have already talked about two of them. You talked about Deadwood, but they're still important. There's Wild Bill. I love him. But he was a lawman and a gambler. His presence at the poker table symbolized a control outlet for risk in a violent world. Since poker often was to test courage and nerve or assert dominance over another person, Hickok tried to do it without pulling a gun, and he tried to show restraint. But eventually he was killed, and that's where the dead man hand came from, which is ace of spades, ace of clubs, eight of aces, eight of spades, that's what that is, and eight of clubs, and then jack of diamonds, I'm pretty sure. But when he was killed, it kind of became the dead man's hand became like a symbol of poker, and it kind of gave a myth to poker of having this game tied to fate and mortality, and it reinforced the idea that poker was a dangerous game. And it kind of just gave it a legend. So that's what he was important for. Poker Alice. I love her. I just love this picture, honestly. But she changed poker into being sort of a career. And she was odd because most gamblers at the time were male. But she avoided drinking, maintained emotional control, and relied on consistency rather than intimidation. So when she was betting, she didn't try to bet super high or talk big in order to get people out of the round. She's kind of like the idea of like a poker face and being just super calm and uncaring about what other people are doing. So she treated poker like a steady income. She operated lots of gambling houses and saloons. She is one of the first examples of a lifelong professional gambler and showed it that it could be a sustainable occupation rather than a reckless pursuit. And then Amarillo Slim, he's the most recent guy I have. His real name was Thomas Preston Jr., but I think his stage name is so much better. He transitioned from the old school road gamblers into a modern poker celebrity. He understood that poker was not only about winning, but selling the experience. So, as you can see from the picture, he was kind of a diva in that manner. He told exaggerated and humorous stories. He cultivated like a memorable persona, as why his name is Amarillo Slim rather than Thomas Preston Jr. Turned poker players into characters, so they're more like actors. So he helped popularize poker beyond backrooms and card clubs. Despite his showmanship, he was quite good at the game, and he had a crucial grasp on how modern poker works. So poker succeeds when skill, spectacle, and accessibility intersect is his idea of it. So he had actual strategy. He got the crowd to like him. He had the media focus on him and bridged and started the televised poker scene. And kind of a lot of online gambling came about after he started showing it as like a fun thing you can do. He appeared on talk shows and at major tournaments. So he helped normalize poker as just being a regular thing you could do, but also kept the competitive and mysterious part of it there. And then I have a quote about poker. In order to be a successful gambler, you have to have a complete disregard for money. Which I think is very honest, because if you're gonna win, might as well bet big. Thanks. I think poker is a very interesting game, and there's so much that goes into it, and there's so many different types of poker. And I just like the card counting aspect of it. I like the probability that you can do with it. And I think that it's probably the most multifaceted game that you could have in a casino. But yeah.
So I see a career coming.
For that, yeah. I've said this for years. If I don't make it in mathematics, I'm going to be a card shark in Vegas. That's the only other plan.
So did you find anything, I guess you got a few of the people and a few of the shootouts with it. Did you find anything about Helena? Helena had some infamous things.
Oh, yes, I looked briefly at Helena, but then I'm like, my presentation is already over 20 slides long. I think,
But you found a few things about?
I think the most interesting part of it though was just people's names. I love that gamblers have fun names. I think that really adds to the effect overall.
Yeah, I found the sheet of paper where you could like come up with certain things. You've probably seen something like this, but you come up with your poker name.
Yeah.
I gotta find that again. I'll look for that again. That'd be pretty cool. All right, good job. Good, very good prairie dogs. Very good. All right. Well done. Myra, you ready? All right. Yeah, this is. Even though it's about gambling and this is history, this is a fun one. Fun project.
Okay.
Quick, let me move the mouse. That's a lot of movement. Okay, go.
So I did horse betting, which I completely forgot that my aunt was doing races for a while. Or I shouldn't say my aunt, my grandma. So I have more connection to this than I thought I did. So what is horse racing? It can be equestrian or it can be Western, but it's just two or more horses typically guided by the rider, performing in a variety of activities. You can do flat racing, terrain. There's so many we could go on. It's believed that it started in Central Asia with nomadic tribes, and it was started to just test out speed and stamina of horses because they needed that to survive because war. It was later formalized in the Roman Empire and medieval Europe, and then after that it went to England, which is where it kind of got more popular because of with like dressage, just I'm gonna try to pronounce it. It's other forms of like dancing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't forgot the word for that. As you can see, we have jumping, there's flat racing, there's pulling the carriage, and then there's stamina, and just climbing up very steep mountains with horses, which I found that one has the highest death rate in horses. The highest death rate in humans that I could find was the carriage because people fall out of the carriage and then they get run over. That was very interesting. Ancient civilizations used it for speed, skill. Like I said, flat racing, just horses galloping straight or on like an oval track, kind of like cars or racetracks. And then jumping was it's just jumping over various things. You've probably seen it because I know we have a competition here that does jumping quite often, and you jump over like the water, the bushes, like fake fences and stuff. And then there's the harness racing, which is the one with the carriage where the horse is just pulling the lightweight carriage with the person in it. And then there's the endurance racing, which is long distance where horses travel across natural terrain. So there's not actually a track. It's usually just like, well, there is a track because we've built tracks before for this, but you basically just go up in the mountains and you're marked by flags. So someone goes through and like ties flags to trees and you kind of just follow those. And the first person to do it the fastest without getting injured. I've done flat racing, jumping, and I've done endurance racing. I've never done the cart one though.
Scary.
Yeah, that one is scary. Horse racing rise to popularity. So it did start in England. It's a really, really big thing there, which I never ever hear the end of. But its modern racing was formalized in England by King James II, and then King Charles, or James I, King Charles II. The Queen of England was quite fond of flat racing. She really, really loved that, and cows is what popped up a lot when I looked up like what happens in England. It was a lot about how Queen Elizabeth really liked cows and flat racing. It kind of started. There's been gambling throughout the whole thing, but the gambling, it's a lot like everything else. It started out as in-place betting. It was legal for the first bit, and then it became illegal, and then it was legal again, and then it wasn't legal, and it was just flip-flop. So it really changed like almost yearly. England, it's been legal in England for much longer than it has in the US. The US tried to stop it a lot more. And then It was started in like in England. It was like the 1930s is when it became really, really popular. The Great Depression attracted a lot of the horse racing in England because they like to bet on American racers and bet also on financial gain in them. So they bet on bettors in the US, which I found really funny. The evolution of off-track betting. So so this one is a bar that we used to have in Montana, and it was where you'd go bet on horses here. And you could bet on rodeo. The early 20th, legal betting on horses was created. And then around 1970s, legalization in New York was specifically New York, because that's like the main hub for it was legalized. And the illegal gambling and like just in general, the mob kind of faded out of it for a while because you didn't have to go through them anymore. And you could be in person and there'd be like people taking your bets and you wouldn't have to it was just an open hobby for some people. And then I would say 1980s, 2000s, it started becoming a little more technological. Like you could call in and place bets. Now it's all on apps. I did place a bet to see how you could do it, and it's really easy. I lost $5. So, but it's teletheaters and restaurants that's where you bet now. That's where you bet on football. That's where you bet on everything now. 1947, trotting races this is one of the biggest tracks in the US. It's the Saratoga track. They started with trot racing, which was horses wouldn't be running, they'd be trotting, which is really, really funny to watch because it's like the person on the top looks like a bag of potatoes. So that was a fabulous thing to watch. They called it the Horse Haven. Then they first formalized thoroughbred horses, which were horses specifically bred for the type of racing they do in August of 1863. The oldest major racetrack is the first major horse to win was a 3-year-old thoroughbred in the US who actually he set the record. And then the oldest in 1901, the group of investors that led this one, which was William Collins, which was the guy right down there, he purchased the track because it wasn't actually formally owned by any individual business at first. It was kind of like a variety of people investing into it. And when he bought it, it was starting to decline a little bit. So he bought it, revamped it. He fixed the track and stuff because tracks were really, really bad for horses for the first 3 decades horse racing happened because in the US because they had too many rocks on the track. So he kind of did the sand, keeping sand everywhere, or what's it called? Wood chips and stuff, so that the horses wouldn't be getting rocks stuck in it. They were known, specifically this one, they're known for the Graveyard of Champions because a lot of people who would do well at other tracks would come here and brutally fail. And then some of the main horses that won were the Gallant Fox, Secretion, and the American Pharoah, which American Pharoah is one of the prettiest horses I've ever seen. I could not find anything on the school computers of a good photo of him though that has color in it. So that's all you get. And then the Triple Crown, which this is not a track. It's spanned over multiple places and the venues change quite often other than the Kentucky Derby. That was one of the first ones done, and then there's flat racing, which is usually done. That's the one that moves around the most. It's considered one of the most difficult feats in sports. Horses must run all 3 races to win the triple crown prestige, which is it's this golden ribbon because everything is when you win you get ribbons. So this one's this golden one and has these pearls around it. It's really pretty. The oldest run for that was June 19th. It was in June 19th, 1867, where it was one of the first men this was really funny. He was under 6 foot, and they really liked pointing that out because I think his name was something like Bigfoot or something because of how short he was and he had really big feet. And so his harnesses, the harness, and then like his little, I always forget the names of the little stirrups. They were they were like this big, which is not normal at all. It was in Baltimore, Maryland for the most from like 1865 to 1873. Um, Churchdown, well, Churchill Downs. This one has gone through. We were supposed to hold it. It was supposed to hold the 2025 competition, but they didn't, and there has been no reason why, like stated. But this is one of the youngest of like the tracks that we use. It's where the Kentucky is it where the Kentucky Derby is? Yeah, it is where the Kentucky Derby is. And it was made on May 17th, 1875. No single entity has ever owned it. A lot of people will buy it for a short period of time, but they can never actually support it on their own. So it's usually like 6 or 7 separate companies that do it. It's in Louisiana, Kentucky, or Louisville, Kentucky. Opened in 1875. It's a permanent home of the Kentucky Derby. Oh my lord! Which is you've probably seen it because it's the one where like ladies wear the really fancy dresses and the really big hats that have like all the flowers and stuff on them. It was founded by Colonel Meriwether, which he had a son named Lewis Clark, which apparently he got mixed up with explorers, but it was Lewis Clark, not Lewis and Clark. Clark leased, I think it was around like 80 to 90 acres of land for him to first build it on. And some of the first shows attracted around like 10,000 people. So it wasn't that big. In 1895, the Twin Spires were built, becoming one of the most important like attractions on it, which this picture has them. And there's one over here, and there's one right back there that you can't really see because the photo's blurred. But they're basically just 2 really tall towers. If you're rich enough, you can go up there and you can bet while you're up there. There was a couple important additions to the track about like fixing the track and stuff. Colonel Matt Wynn in 1902 saved the track from bankruptcy. He basically used all of his money to invest in it, which was that bad right there. So he basically went from like having a decent like house with his wife and children to like all of a sudden they're living in an apartment and all of a sudden is going towards the track, which his wife was not happy with. And then we have the Baltimore Racetrack, which is my favorite, and it's located in Elton, New York, or Elmont, New York, and it's known for the Baltimore Stakes, which is the oldest of the Triple Crown competition. It originated in Jerome Park in the Bronx, and then it moved to Morris Park in like 1890, 1904. The track used to be called Big Sandy because it was 1.5 mile long track, and it was one of the largest tracks or longest tracks in North America. And the sand ended up overstimulating a horse to the point where it was put down on the track in front of everybody because it was having seizures because its feet kept getting stuck. And apparently that stressed the horse out a little too much.
Yeah.
And then her name is Julia Crome, and she is one of the very first women she's the first woman to ever win the Triple Crown, which was, I could have sworn there was someone before her, but I'm pretty sure that lady just competed in it. She didn't actually win. She actually won it. A female, like she's built first. It's really sad that it took this long because she did it in 1993. And then obviously they replaced some of it with grass. So there's different levels depending on your age and your horse's age and how much experience you've had and how many awards you've won, depending on how far out you go. Which was interesting because I was pretty sure it was. And then the last one I think I have is the Fairmont Park. And it's in Illinois, and it's Too Tough to Die. So it's hard, but it's not as hard as, so it's tough enough that you can get injured, but you won't die on this one, which is a good thing to know. In 1925, It was opened in St. Louis, 1947. It was the first mile-long track that would operate at night with lights over top of it because you couldn't really do it at night because we didn't have lights for a long time. 1969, Odin purchased the racetrack, which is that guy in the middle. And then in 1974, a fire burnt it down. And then there was like kind of like they rebuilt it after like it took them a couple years to rebuild it, so they moved it and they moved it back in 2020. It made a partnership with an online company called FanDuel, and in 2025 they have actually changed the name back. They had it changed to sound like they named it after FanDuel for a while there, but 2025 they moved it back to the original name and they're celebrating their 100th anniversary. Well, they did. Influential owners. This one was okay. This one, so he is one of the richest men to breed horses. He sells them to American racers. I can't pronounce his name. It's like seven long. John Menninger, he's the one on the top. He's the boss and like one of the most influential figures in the US. And then JP Manis is an Irish one. Big Red is one of the most he's won the Triple One in 1973. He's one of the fan favorites. Seabiscuit is an underdog during the Great Depression. He's one of the very few that actually did a good job. Man o' War, he only lost one race. He raced 20 times or 21 times, and he won 20 of his races. And there's actually debate that was from gambling and someone like paid him off to have a late start. And then Red Rum, which I love Red Rum a lot because we have horses, a descendant of a horse of his, and he was an English Grand National Street 3 times champion. He did jumping specifically. The guy, and these are my favorite gamblers. These aren't the most prominent, but they're my favorite. The guy right here, his name was the Whimsical Accumulator, and he bet 50 pence, which is about 20 cents on 8 different horses. And as they started winning, it accumulated, and he ended up winning like, what was it? He won $1 million. He bet 20 cents. So he is whimsical. And then the guy with the glasses he made a bet against his own horse. And everyone thought that was really weird because he had a horse racing who won first place, but the horse he bet on won second place, which also left him with a large sum of money because no one thought that horse would even get to the top 3. And then the guy down here, or no, the guy in the corner, like kind of purplish photo, he made a bet in, I think it was Hong Kong, and he made a really big bet and just disappeared. He came back to the US and just disappeared, and he won a large sum, so it got rolled over into charity, and he just never got it back. He came out like a couple years ago saying that it was him, but he never got his money. There's my
Very good. Not perfect timing. Good job, everyone. Myra, thank you. That was good. These are great. Bernie, did you make the picture of the? That's awesome. Okay, we'll have to go back and show everyone again later. That was really cool. Yeah.
So I won everything. I won 5. But the only reason I won is because I wanted to.
Did you what?
My first was so I won.
You're a great, a fantastic job. Great picture. Oh, the battery's gone off.
What? No, it didn't. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Oh, I'm filming the last one.